Okay, good morning, good afternoon. Hey Amir, how are you doing? Hey Augusto, good afternoon. Lingopedia asking for gold to be analyzed first. No, we will keep it to the last one. What we're going to do is we're going to look at all the other major currency pairs first, get an idea of risk on, risk off, what's the scenario, then we'll get to gold. That's why we leave it to the last one. TGIF, Jimmy, how are you doing? It's been a quiet week, and then we had a major shock, bit of a major shock this morning, and then it's all retraced back down or back up again. So we'll talk about that shortly. Good morning, Jumarinas, how are you doing? Alrighty. Okay. I think it should be streaming fine, so you guys can see me okay, hear me all right. We'll give it a minute and then we'll get started. Okay, all right, cool. Hey Ayakame, how you doing? Good morning. Alrighty, good stuff. Okay. Thanks for that, Jumarinas. Now, if we're ending the week on Friday, wrapping up the trading week, like I was saying just then, it was relatively quiet. Everything sitting in a bit of a consolidation, and then this morning, not that early this morning, but this morning, the news came out where Israel attacked or fired a couple of missiles or attacked a couple of key sites in Iran, which led to an almost immediate reaction on the markets, where we saw the dollar spike up, we saw gold spike up, we saw the yen spike to the downside, and that happened over about an hour and a half. It came down, and then after that it bounced off respective levels and came back up again. All right, retraced back to almost its original level. So that was that one news that caused a bit of a spike, hit a couple of take profits, closed a couple of trades. I know that. I think it was Jimmy who closed out 50 pips on the gold. I did a quick scalp on the yen because of the news. I saw it drop, bounced back up a little bit, got in, took a scalp to the downside, and my Aussie went down and I closed out as well. Right? So I hope for those of you who were up, it would have been very early for many of you, but for those of you who were up, managed to catch some of the trades, a couple of pips here and there with that news. And then just before our session 1 hour ago, we had the UK with their retail sales number release. We'll talk about that shortly. Didn't see too much of a reaction from that, but we'll talk about that shortly. Okay, if you are new to the session, do remember to drop a message and say hi. Let me know where you're joining us from on whichever platform you're joining us on. And for all the regulars, a big welcome back. Thank you again for joining me through this week. I know all of you, well, actually many of you here are tuning in every day, getting a good idea of where the markets are heading. So if you have any questions, again, please feel free to put it into the chat and let me know. And you can help me out massively by remembering to click on that like and subscribe button, that thumbs up button. Small action, clicking on it, but it ideally would bring maybe more people onto the session to build our trading community on Discord. If you haven't joined already, the link is right there on the top of the chat. Okay, now with that said, let's get to the hang on, let me close that. Sorry. All right, let's get to the quick disclaimer. Any information contained on this webinar should not be construed as advice and is presented as educational material only. So please do your own due diligence, as the contents of this webinar are not intended to be a recommendation to trade a financial product, as your objectives, financial situation, and needs has not been considered, and you should consider its appropriateness to your circumstances. Oops, take that away. Okay, Jimmy just said he's just caught another 30 pips on gold, just as it popped up, I guess, or with that downward move. I think you caught it on a pop-up. But we'll look at that shortly. Like I was just saying, click down at, what time was it? 5 hours ago. All right, 5 hours ago, it was on live squawk from the US official where it said Israel conducted airstrikes on a target in Iran. Multiple explosions in multiple cities in Iran. Both cities contained Iran's nuclear program, but there was also the following headline where state TV from Iran said that Iran's nuclear facilities were unharmed. Right? I guess that's why we saw firstly, I was more focused on the yen during that time. We saw the yen push from that 154.62 level right down to try again to break that level. This level that we have, I'll drag that across, this level that we have here, failed to break lower and then bounce back up, right? So it's almost back to where it started, but it does look like it's gonna have another leg back down again. It's kind of working as we had anticipated, come down to test that support and then bounce back up, right? So it's following the arrows and working as what we drew from yesterday. I didn't know there was going to be a strike. I didn't expect this reaction, but it's happening pretty much as we drew it. With that as well, what I am kind of worried about, or what I'm paying a bit of attention to, is that headline where it says Iran's military response will be immediate at a maximum level if Israel attacks, Foreign Minister says. So that sounds like it's not, as much as the prices are retracing, it's not, we're not past it yet. I think that there is again still that possibility of further escalations. With that, I would highly suggest and recommend and reinforce to you guys that you should not be holding any trades over the weekend, right? With what is happening now, the best practice would be to close off your trades, even if it's in good profit. Close off your trades before the weekend, because we just don't know what's going to happen over the weekend. Don't want to start next week with a bit of a rude shock. Okay, so that's the main thing I want to really reinforce to you guys. And before we head into what has happened since we last spoke, good afternoon, Christina, how are you doing? And good morning to everyone as well. Good morning, Angel Case. Hey, Pips Apprentice, good to see you all. Now, what has happened since the last time we spoke? We spoke about that employment numbers for the Aussies yesterday. 8:30 p.m. we had unemployment claims for the US, as we expected. No big surprise there. And then a couple of member Bowman and Williams speaking from the FOMC, and not much else through to today at 2 p.m. just 1 hour ago. We had the UK with their retail sales number. Not as great as we had expected, right? It was a 0%, got revised upwards to 0.1. Expected a 0.3, got released at 0, right? So it did not show an increase in retail sales number, but the reaction on the pound was a push back up. I wouldn't draw the idea that it's bounced back up because of the news. I think that drop at 9 a.m. my time was because of the Israel-Iran conflict, the move towards reserve where dollar strengthened. We saw the pound drop, and then this is just a retracement because we're seeing the dollar retrace. So we're seeing that push back up. Okay, so I would say that in fact, the news did not have that much of an impact. It's these movements right now is being driven by the dollar index. Okay, and if I went down to the 1 minute time frame, you'd see that at 2, when it got released, there you go, and put a line there. So this was the news release, right? So I'll do one before. You can see that on the news release at 0%, we actually did see a brief drop from 1.2412 down to 1.2404, right? About 10 pips, less than 10 pips drop. And then it sat there and then it pushed back up because of the movements on the dollar index. All right, so now what do we have? Nothing much else for the rest of the day. So this is, I feel, the opportunity with all the uncertainty that's happening that arrived from this morning. There will be opportunities, likely to be opportunities to get into trades. But at this point, I would always suggest to keep your trades relatively short term. Never know when it will spike down or back up again. So keep it quick, keep it short term, take your profits, and stay safe, because into next week, right? We're on Friday, so looking into next week, we have PMI numbers to come from the Eurozone and the UK and the US on Tuesday. CPI number to come from the Aussies on Wednesday, and a bank holiday Anzac Day, 25th of April, Anzac Day, a bank holiday for Australia, New Zealand. We do have GDP numbers to come from the US, and then the BOJ. That's what I'll be watching out for next week. It'll be high on my list. The BOJ with their policy. I don't expect a rate increase this time round, but we might be looking at some comments from the monetary policy statement, or even the press conference or the outlook report that might bring about some conversations or some topics about a intervention. There was a headline. Where was it? There was a headline there. Well, there we go. Inflation slows to 2%. Eyes on BOJ move. And then there was one more. Where was the one? Where was it? Where was it? Not that one. BOJ. No, it's not that one. But there was one recently. I just saw that just then. Not those. Okay, well, there was a comment from the BOJ. There, right? There's a chance weak yen may affect trend on inflation, and if so, could lead to policy shift. All right. So, and also the U.S. economy is affecting Japan's economy and prices via FX rate. Increasing talk about that. I don't think the big picture changed on US inflation or the Fed outlook. So overall, I think that I'm watching what could happen on Friday next week. But we do have a couple of CPI numbers to be released, mainly from the Aussies as well. Okay, so next week is going to be quite interesting, I feel. Again, remember, try as much as you can not to hold on to any trades over the weekend, just because we never know what's going to happen in between Israel and Iran. All right, if there's going to be any further escalation. With that said, then looking at the charts, look at that. Okay, so yesterday we talked about it possibly coming up to test that resistance and turning down. That did not happen, take that away. But we also say that if it broke above that resistance, we could see it climb up to that previous high, which it kind of did. Right, last night at 9 p.m. GMT plus 8, it broke above and climbed up to as high as, last night it climbed up to about almost 106.20. this morning pushed up on the move towards reserve because of what happened. And then, so that was 9 a.m. We went from 106.20 up to 106.33, and then it pushed right back down. So it sat there for at 10, 11 it retraced all the way. At 2 it's come back down. Now it's back towards that support, resistance to support level. Okay, I'll take that away because that's not too relevant right now, and I don't need that as well. Okay, so now checking the levels. Let me see. Anything here we can use? Nope. 50% was where it came to. Okay. So on this move, nope. Yeah, on this move we had that 50% level and at 61.8, which is that point there. And then on this move we have that 38.2 right there together with, no, 23 is done. Okay, so we're looking at those 2 points. That move is done. Take that away. This was where we were yesterday. This was where we were yesterday. So it looks like, how I'm looking at it right now is, you know, with no major news, well, no major scheduled news for the US, it looks like we might be within the range. We might be stuck within the range. We don't need that. Let me just find somewhere more relevant. So that was the gap that we were looking at. Back down to this point here. All right. Now we have it. Let me just check a couple of levels. All right, okay. No major news. If it doesn't escalate further, what I would be looking for, I'm not sure whether it's going to come all the way down. Let's see, why do we have the support level here? Because of that point, but it's broken these levels quite easily. I have it at 106 as a round number as well. Okay. So I'm just kind of thinking aloud. With that, today is the 19th of April. We're looking at the dollar index coming down. I would actually say that it needs to break 106. It's right in the middle. It's not in the middle, but it's right in a point where it kind of can do anything. So what I would like to see on the dollar would be for it to break 106. That's a nice round number, which is also that 61.8. From this move up. Alright, so what is likely we're looking for is maybe to come down, test, and if it doesn't break that 61.8 and the support level, we could see it bounce. Right? Bounce back up. Unless, okay, so that's what I'll be looking for. The alternate scenario would be it breaks and it heads all the way down, but I'm looking for that bounce on the dollar, but to remain within the range. Okay, so what I'm looking for here on the dollar index would be a retest, possible retest of 106 support level, then could bounce to remain within 106 and 106.40 range. All right, the alternate is if it breaks 106, then it could, if 106 broken, could trade down to 105 105.70. Okay, so looking for it to come down, test and bounce. If not, then it's going to come down to that 105.75 level. There we go. Overall, I think I'm more tempted to think that we're going to see a bit more strength or some strength on the dollar to come back into play. So with that, thinking that we might see the dollar strengthen, looking at the Kiwi. So this was a trade that we talked about as the best scenario. Did not trigger because it did not push up and then break lower. But also during the analysis, I was saying, this could be something that you look out for. As it breaks that trend line, you could look for that further downside move. Anyone got onto this 40 pip move to the downside, let me know. I missed out on this move. I was on the Aussie. So let me know if you got onto the Kiwi for this. Trend line is done. Take that away. What I'm seeing here is that it's found support and it's pushing back up a little bit. Now, if that breaks, let's have a look. If that breaks up 50 and 61.8, this whole thing is an area, right? So we have this point here and this point here as our resistance. Okay, so that whole thing is a resistance area where I'm considering. So what I would think, right, looking at this possibly pushing down a little bit more, is I wouldn't get into anything on the Kiwi yet. Looking for it to bounce off the support, to push higher, to test the resistance, and then looking to sell down. Right? What that means is that I would be looking for a selling position at about 5920. I think it's going to sound very similar to yesterday's view. Looking for 5920, stop loss 25 pips. Take profit would be down to 55 to the downside. Okay, so 59, changed a little bit, 5920, stop loss 25, take profit 55. Right, waiting for the bounce, looking for it to bounce, to retrace back, keeping within this range to trade back. If it does break that support, we could see further downside, but I don't think, unless we see massive dollar strength coming back into play, right? Further escalation, big dollar strength, then we'll see that break the support and hit strongly to the downside, like that. But I don't see that happening unless it's big news. So we look for that move. Okay, breaking that support is relatively straightforward. If it does break, then you'll be looking at 5850. Stop loss can be very tight at 20 pips. Take profit could go down to 70 pips to the downside. So it's an either or, but I would like to look for that one. Yeah, I would look for that one. Okay. Then on to the Aussie. This was a trade that I did get into. I had my take profit at 75, I think. Yeah, down to the support, I had my take profit at 75. It triggered, I got into that trade, and then it bounced around, and then this morning, same thing with the news release, we saw that push to the downside. What happened was, I looked at it outside of the Bollinger, it spiked out. All right, I'll show you that. It spiked out, and then I went, okay, I'll get out at 60 pips as it came down. I think I was on the 5-minute time frame. Yeah, it came down outside, closed out. Right, I saw it on the 1 hour time frame, was outside, looked at on 5 minute, closed out of the trade at 60 pips on the Aussie dollar. Same thing, if any of you did get onto that trade, do let me know. Take that away, right? Same thing with the Kiwi. All those are done. We have this point here with that resistance. I'll keep that there at the 23 level. It's bouncing back up right now. Checking the trend line. No, it could turn back down from here. Looking at this move, coming back, same, it looks so similar. The only difference is the Kiwi is sitting at that 50% level. The Aussie is trying to break that 61.8. Maybe what we're looking at is if the Aussie, so okay, I'll show you what I mean here. Hang on a second. Looking at the Kiwi here, we're looking at a bigger move, right? We're looking at it to go from 5892 to 5930, a good 100 pip move up before it retraces. It's going to take a long time. What could happen a bit earlier is on the Aussie, where we could look at it test and reject from this point, right? A test and reject from this point. A quicker, possibly quicker trade to a trade setup. So we're looking at about 6410. Stop loss 20 pips. Take profit down to this point is 46. We can go all the way down to about 55 to the downside. Right, we're looking for it to test and reject, break and reject that 61.8. Might not go all the way to resistance, and then we look to sell it down. So we're looking on the Aussie to sell at 0.6410, stop loss 20, take profit 55 to the downside. Right, it's pushing up right now. So just thinking that it might not go all the way to that resistance and we can sell it down. Very similar to the Kiwi is that if it does go up to that resistance, I'm still looking to sell it down. I'll be looking for 6440. Stop loss, again, no more than 20 pips. Take profit, you could be looking at a good 80 pips to the downside. Or even 70 pips to the downside there. Okay, so we're looking at that two scenarios there on the Aussie. You can see Aussie moving a little bit more than the Kiwi at this point. So looking for that, maybe test and reject. It seems like we might be revising this view on the dollar index. We'll see how that develops. But I don't, okay, look at that, looking at this big downward push on the Aussie, I'm not too keen to be buying it up. That's why I'm still looking for a test and reject opportunity on both the Aussie and the Kiwi. Then looking at the yen, right? This is working out perfectly as we talked about. I think we were at where were we? We were at that point. We're at that point yesterday when I said don't do anything. It's right in the middle of the range. That could come down, test and bounce back up. Totally didn't expect this. I thought it was more technical, what likely to have been more a technical reason, but it bounced because of a news. It shot down because of the news, now it's bouncing back up. And you'll notice here, what's interesting is that as much as we're talking about that brief dollar weakness, right? Brief dollar weakness, we're actually seeing the US yen climb. So this could again be because yen weakness. It's not driven up by dollar strength. Right? It's not driven up by dollar strength. It's driven up by that yen weakness, or driven up by a like I'll show you here first. Pound dollar pushing up, pound yen dragged higher, dragging the US yen up. Euro dollar climbing up, dragging the euro yen to the upside, hence dragging the US yen up as well. Okay, so this was the quick scalp I did on with the news. Came in, saw this drop, bounced back up. Show you Bollinger as well. So it dropped, it bounced back up, came back within the Bollinger, and that's where I thought move towards reserve, likely to see a bit more strength on the yen. Got in, looked for it to push down and got in as it tried to break that 154 level. Quick trade, 30 pips in 10 minutes, and then got out of that trade. Okay, so take that away. Now at this point, again, wouldn't be looking to do much here because it's again coming up. We've seen that react already. We've seen it react once and twice. What would be good to do here on the yen, on the US yen, would be a test and reject of 154.75. Right about that point. It's sitting there. I think, yeah, that's fine. So we're looking for this move on the yen. Right, so what I'll be looking at is selling down 154.65, stop loss 20 pips, take profit down 75, 80 pips to the downside. That's looking at it within that range, keeping within that range. It looks like there are good strong forces keeping it away from that 155 level, so we're looking at that possible retracement back down. Okay, not retracement back down, but keeping within that range. So 154.65, stop loss 20, take profit 80 to the downside for the US yen. All right, 154.65, 20 to 80. Stop loss 20, take profit 80 to the downside. Oh, yeah, sell. Okay. Hey PM, how you doing? Hey Jamil, good morning. All right. Yeah. Okay. Then on to the pound dollar. Take those away, that did not trigger. All right, it pushed strongly to the downside. Again, we know what happened here this morning, so that did not trigger as well. Take that away. Now staying within this range. Your favorite pair, Jamil. Came down, bounced off. I would consider that if this trades all the way down, right, the dollar index trades all the way down, then we might be looking at this pushing up. If you are going to be looking at a trade right now, 1.2445, stop loss 25, take profit to this point will be 30. I kind of expected that, Jamil. I kind of expected that from you. All right, so looking at this, this is something to look at or to look for, right? Where it bounced, looking for that bounce back up, 1.2445. Hesitation level at 1.2480 to continue pushing up towards the resistance and at 38.2 level. You could be looking for that on massive dollar weakness or a bit of a looking at the dollar strength to come back into play, 1.2470 Stop loss tight 20 pips, no more than 20. Take profit down to 45 to the downside. Right, so you could, idea is that you could be looking for this to push up strongly, or look for this to push up and then turn back down to look for that selling opportunity. Let me know, put it into chat. What do you think? You like option, what are you more tended towards, number 1 or number 2? What are you more tended towards, number 1 or number 2? It just sounds weird to say number 1 or number 2, but you know what I mean. The trade setup 1 or trade setup 2. Put it into the chat. Let me know, let me know, let me know. Okay, looking for you guys to do it. Put it into the chat and let me know. Not moving ahead until you do that. All right, cool. Okay, so when you guys put that in, what I'm looking at is possibly, depending on your risk, I'll be looking at a 2, right? I'm looking at a 2 as well, but could go for a quick trade up. Could go for a quick trade up. One is kind of setting up right now. Okay, so what I would do, I'll do a combination. I'll do a 1, look for it to go up. If it goes up and it shows a bit of weakness, like at that point, then we'll switch for it to retrace and sell it back down. Okay, so we have that 1 there, but we'll say 1.2470, 20 to 45 to the downside. No, let's put both of it in. 1.2440, stop loss 25, take profit 75. 1.2440, stop loss 25, take profit 75. And then, or a sell at 1.2470, 20 to 45. 20 to take profit 45, back down. Yep, that looks okay. That looks fair. To 55, 45, 45. To 45. Yeah, I do think that there is more selling opportunities, but I'm just thinking that if that dollar does break this 106 level to push to the downside, then we might see the pound dollar push up, right? So this big push up is if the dollar breaks below 106. What number 2 means is that it bounces off 106 and goes back to strength. Then we'll look for that selling opportunity. Okay, then on to the euro. Again, that did not trigger. It had a big push down because again of the news. Came back down to the same level. I would even take that away. On a weekly, there's a divergence on the, yep. I'm looking at this point here, all that swing levels here that we could see a bounce. That's my resistance turned support. Yeah, no, my support turned resistance, sorry. Now looking at these levels, that makes sense. Let me check. 23 is well, and it's well broken, so we don't need that. And 50 is up there. Okay. Okay, there we go. I kind of like to look at this and think that maybe it could bounce. No, not bounce, but break through from this resistance to further upside, thinking that we might see more dollar weakness to come around. All right, so 106.7, 1.0670, 20 pips to 55. Yep. Okay, so I'm thinking about that for the euro. 106.70. Yeah, we can try that. I mean, it most likely could do that and come back down again, right? But I think that we're so much looking at the dollar recovery. What if it does break? I would say I'll consider that 106.70, 1.0670, 20 to 55. 1.0670, 20 to 55 to the upside. Okay. Then on to the US Swiss franc. Totally unexpectedly, it shot down and could have hit almost a 70 pip take profit. But we all know that's because of the news, a bit of a shift towards reserve. It's continuing on down. Right, that level doesn't make sense anymore. Take that away. But you can see that that's reasonable. Pushing down, I would say that if it stays below 0.91, right? 0.91 is right here. In fact, I might move this. Take that away. I'll put 0.91 just because I like that round number level as my resistance. Right, and if it stays below 0.91 and we can see it pushing down, what I would be looking for would be selling opportunities. And we have this point here. Check the Bollinger, that's okay. So 9065, below 9065, you could be looking at further downside on the US Swiss franc. 9055, stop loss tight. 15 at the best, 20 at the very most. Take profit will be down to 40 pips, 40 pips to the downside. Okay, so 9055. US Swiss franc. Hang on, 9055. So ICOM is asking, move towards reserve, supposed to push the dollar index higher. Yes, but what we're seeing now is the dollar retracing all that recent move down. So might not be, and because we haven't seen any further escalation on the conflict, so it might be overran on that move. And also I'll put in this just to show you as well the RSI. We see that tracing back down from right there was the slightly over bought region, so it's coming back down. So maybe thinking that it could retrace. All right. Answer your question there, Ayakame. There was a move towards reserve, but it might be over, and then a push back down again. So on the US Swiss franc, we're looking at 9055, 20 to 40. 9055, stop loss 20, take profit 40 to the downside. I just typed the same thing. Okay. Then onto the USCAD, onto the loonie. That did not happen. Take that away, did not bounce. But what we're seeing is that. I don't need that. On 23, we have that. Lingopedia asks, Israel attacked Iran this morning. What effect could it have on pairs? As we know, they are in overbought zones. We've been talking about that, Lingopedia. We've been talking about that. It's the attack. We've seen that reaction. We're seeing a retrace back from the reaction. I don't. I think it's back to almost back to normal conditions. So I'm not considering too much. They're not exactly in overbought regions. I mean, if we look at this on the Kiwi, it's not in the overbought region. It's actually oversold. That's why it's bouncing back up, right? So I wouldn't be considering the technicals. The technicals kind of go out the window. Technical indicators kind of go slightly out the window on shock events like that. Okay. So looking at this, I do think that there's going to be a bit more downside on the US CAD, especially with maybe an increase in oil. So thinking about that, I wouldn't want to trade within this range. I don't think it's a big space. Even if it breaks down from here, you have 20 something pips move to the downside. I would say the better thing maybe into next week will be if it breaks below the support at 1.37. If it breaks below 1.37, you have a stop loss about 20 pips. You have a take profit down to that 61.8 at about 80 pips to the downside with a bit of a hesitation level there. Right? So gonna have a bit more waiting to do on the loonie. But we're looking at maybe a medium term kind of trade at below 1.37, stop loss 20, take profit 80 to the downside. So US CAD on the loonie, we're looking to sell at 1.37, stop loss 20, take profit 80 to the downside. Take that one away. All right. Then on the last one would be gold. Right? Again, same thing. We thought, oh, well, it can bounce and back up to yesterday we're saying bounced of 23.65 to 23.95. It didn't exactly get to 23.65, but we did see it push up to 23.95 and almost 24.17, almost 24.20, and retrace back down. Okay, what you would also notice here is that correlation between gold and the dollar index. Dollar index still pushing to the downside, gold as well pushing to the downside slightly. So it seems to be moving in a somewhat of a tandem right now, not inverse. It's not inversely correlated right now. Okay, I'll move this down just to keep the charts a little bit neater. There we go. Because that broke up the channel, so that's where the channel ended. I will keep that channel there. That makes sense up to that point. Up to that point where it broke up the channel and went right across. Okay. Great. That makes sense. I don't need that. Take that away. This move 61.8 is there. That's okay. Great. Now I'm looking at this on gold. It looks like it's going to stay within this range. Right? It's going to stay within this range with potential for further upside if we see any escalation. Okay, so what I would be looking for is it stays in there, breakout above 2400. We can see maybe 2430. That's all I would be looking out for on gold at this point. So gold would be only if it breaks 2400. could trade up to 24.30, which would be a very good trade, right? You'll be looking at something like 2400, tight stop, very tight stop, and a good take to the upside. Okay. With all that said, I would say that you might have some very short-term trade setups for today. Again, remember, as much as you can, don't hold on to your trades over the weekend, just because we don't know what's likely to happen over the weekend with things happening between Israel and Iran. And remember, if you haven't already, do remember to click the like and subscribe button. I will see you all on Monday. Please have a great weekend and trade well, trade safe. Take care now. Bye-bye.